6 o'clock, call meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember Richardson. Roll call, please.
Larkey,
Here.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Thompson,
Here.
Councilmember Pryan,
Here.
Councilmember Davidson,
Here.
Councilmember Lawson,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson,
Here.
Councilmember McCallum,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum. Personal appearances, we have 3 personal appearances tonight that were received, but after the printing of the agenda, so whichever one of you is coming up first, come on up. State your name, address, and your reason.
It might be clearer if you called on the individuals.
Oh, our Bianca Kirby, sorry, I'll do it that way. I need to roll that down. There you go.
Hi, my name is Bianca Kirby, and I live at 15616 White Drive. And we have had some issues with the development off of 155th Street with North Point and Roush Coleman, as far as what is actually wanting to be put there. We understand that there's going to be houses. We have no problem with houses being put in that area. We understand that's going to happen, but we just have some things that we are very, very concerned about. Part of those concerns are when back in March of 2021, the president or the owner of North Point specifically stated, and in front of the city council, and it was approved, that they would do the infrastructure of the lots where the houses are supposed to be. That was specifically said he would do. That was approved through the city council. It's in the meetings. So we have a problem as far as saying that the builder would prefer that they wait and so forth and all these little excuses, but they can do the infrastructure without having to wait for the builder. You see it like in the traditions or anywhere else. They usually do the infrastructure and then the builders come in and build houses. So it's not that they have to wait for what the builder wants to do, because that's usually, I mean, I saw the houses, all the streets going in when we were going down Mall. It's like, oh, I guess they're going to put a housing addition in there. And then you just had lots for sale, and you had different builders put those in. So for them to say that it's something that they have to wait for the builder, Roush Coleman wants what they want to do for the infrastructure, it just doesn't sound right. The next part that I have an issue is we were promised so many things to be done when the warehouses actually went in, and those were not done. The berms are still not completed like they were promised to us. The lighting still has not been completed like it was promised to us. Every time we bring something up, we feel like we are being bullied in a way. Like, oh, you'll get used to it. Don't worry about it. It's none of your concern. Well, it is our concern because we live there, and you know, we've asked about traffic studies. Well, oh, it was done 10 years ago. Well, in 10 years, let me think. The warehouses went in. You have more houses coming down from Creekmore, 155th Street. Now you're going to go try to put 39 houses in there, and you have the roundabout that you always have. Every time we turn around, there's a wreck or something on there. So you need to look at a new a new way to get in and out of there, because I leave my house at 6 o'clock in the morning, and there are times I have to literally wait, and that's at 6 o'clock in the morning. I've left as late as 8 o'clock, and I sit there to make a left-hand turn on 155th Street. So you're going to be putting extra houses in there. You need to look at what your infrastructure is and how people are going to get in and out of there, because it's crazy. You know, when we first promised the warehouses were going to be one way, we never, all of a sudden, the warehouses go another way. When did we get notified of that? You know, everything was done kind of like on the down low, and we were never informed of it until after the fact when nothing could be changed. And then I was looking also at, so you want to change it to a PUD. So I was kind of looking at the definition of that. Well, usually in a PUD, you have an HOA, which a lot of places do. We don't have an HOA, and we don't want an HOA. But in that HOA, you have amenities. Let's see, a park, a playground, a swimming pool, a clubhouse. Well, that's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. And then who's going to collect the funds for the HOA, and who oversees that? So is that money in the pocket for Roush Coleman because they're going to be the ones with the builders? I mean, is that how that works? And then they're going to actually make money off of that, and who's going to monitor them? The city? Or, I mean, who's going to monitor that? Because we have codes in the city, but then you have, how is that going to work? We have questions for that. And who's going to enforce that part of it? And why can't we just have like any other area that we have where you put the infrastructure in, you invite builders to come in there, and people can get their own builder. That's how we did it in our area. Everybody, you just bought the lot, and then you got your own builder, and you got it to specifics that you wanted to have it done. Is it that they're that hard up for money that they are trying to get all these houses in? North Point is a multi-million-dollar company, billion-dollar company. I don't understand why they're forcing that to make it to where they have to make a profit on something, and it's like, you guys, you're getting ready to put some more warehouses in, I think, on the east side of Belton, or right up off 150th Street, and, that's just, I don't know.
It's been 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I guess I'm done.
Thank you. Tim Smith.
Hi, my name is Tim Smith. I live at 6505 East 157th Street. Again, I want to thank the council for allowing us to speak and air our issues and grievances and what have you. Yeah, I know a lot of the stuff that we talk about is historical, as far as not really having a vehicle to complain to or have oversight looked at during construction and all through the three buildings and so forth. From my perspective, I'm the closest person to the site, and the issues that we're talking about directly affect me with noise, with even the construction site during construction. The pieces I don't understand, and again, I understand what Mrs. Kirby's talking about feeling not supported. The complaints that we've had during this whole process that should have been, I thought, a normal conversation. Hey, this isn't done. This should have been taken care of. Why are we, as homeowners, coming back to the city going, hey, we feel like something's not right here? I would have thought that would have been either the city administrator or somebody that's over the oversight of this, or a punch list or whatever, should have caught these problems versus the homeowners feeling like we're up against, the North Point. And that's not our role. That's what your role is, as far as, hey, you're supporting us. And I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm just saying, you guys are helping us because you know all the ins and outs of what's going on with the construction and the projects and the city pieces to this. Again, I think everybody knows how we feel with the issues. And again, some of it's historical, so I'm not going to go back through those pieces and parts of that. But I would like to have, somebody to help support us. And again, we want stuff built. We want houses like and kind. I don't want to live next to and it sounds really bad, a $250,000 home and bring my value down, or my life, or my the way our neighborhood is. I just don't feel it's a good fit, and I don't want to be experimented with on our side of town and see if it works. I just don't feel it's a good fit for us over here. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis Moody.
Good evening, Dennis Mood from White Drive in Belton. When Linda and I were looking at the house where we now reside, we already knew that the area in question was going to be developed. And we were very pleased to have an extension of our neighborhood with similar homes as ours that would be put in. That being said, I assume you all have heard and are aware of the complaints and concerns of the neighborhood, from the neighborhood, about this particular development, the number and type of houses being considered, and the builder who will be doing the work, and the reasons for those objections. I also assume that you've all seen the videos and/or the minutes of the council meetings from 3 years ago, what was said, what was agreed to, and what was not done. Now, everybody in the neighborhood, we all understand and we are aware that this council is not responsible for what the previous council said and agreed to. However, you are responsible to hold North Point accountable for what they said that they would do and to abide by the previously approved 26 lots, same number of houses, under the heading of R1 zoning. That's your responsibility. Belton can be a town or a city. They can, with warehouses and cheap housing, it can be a Kmart special, or it could be Bloomingdale's. And that's the choices that you guys have to make here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item E, unfinished business. Item number 1, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2024-45.
An ordinance approving the 22nd Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan to approve the 119 East South Avenue project as redevelopment project 2024-3 and to authorize tax abatements as described therein.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anything to add? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Richardson?
Aye.
Thompson?
Yes.
Pryan?
Aye.
Davidson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Lawson?
Aye.
McCallum?
Aye.
Mayor Larky?
Aye. Motion passes. 2, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2024-46.
An ordinance accepting the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission Strategic Highway Safety Plan Program Agreement and funds for the purchase of high-visibility police traffic vests.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mayor Larky?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Pryan?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
McCallum?
Aye.
Lawson?
Aye.
Thompson?
Yes.
Davidson?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 3, motion approving final reading of Bill 2024-47.
An ordinance approving a special use permit to allow an animal services kennel use in a C2 general commercial zoning district at 1016 North Scott Avenue.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan?
Aye.
Davidson?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
White?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
McCallum?
Aye.
Lawson?
Aye.
Mayor Larky?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 4, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2024-48.
An ordinance approving a final plat for The View, lots 1 through 11, and Tract A, an 11-lot and 1-tract residential subdivision located on the north side of 2nd Street between Hackberry and Herschel Streets in the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Lawson?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Thompson?
Yes.
Richardson?
No.
Pryan?
No.
McCallum?
No.
Davidson?
Yes.
White?
Aye.
Mayor Larky?
Yes. Motion carries. New business. Item F1, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-49.
An ordinance approving a rezoning from R1 Single Family Residential to R1 PUD Single Family Residential Plan Unit Development and a preliminary development plan for the development of Southview Residential, a 39-lot single-family development on 11.44 more or less acres, generally located south of East 155th Street and west of White Drive.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Before this evening is a request to rezone property from R1 Single Family to R1 PUD, which is a Single Family Plan Unit Development, and approve a preliminary development plan for a 39-lot Single Family subdivision. The subject property is generally located at south of East 155th Street and west of White Drive, and was previously platted as Sunset Hills Third Plat. The 2021 replat, which was brought forward concurrently with the Southview Commerce Center Building 4, included 26 single-family lots on 11.44 acres. And the proposal this evening accommodates a single-family subdivision with modifications requested through a PUD, which are outlined in the staff report attached to the ordinance. Modifications include reducing the lot size to 6,000 square feet and the lot width to 50 feet, as well as modifying the front setback to create more variation to improve the visual impact from the street. Also reducing the side and corner side setbacks, which will vary by lot. Additionally, there is an increase in the total building coverage to 35%. The graphics in the staff report and provided in the applicant's presentation to the Planning Commission, which are all included in the staff report and the packet, help to better illustrate where modifications are requested to those lot sizes, widths, and setbacks. Based on feedback from the neighbors through the community meeting, the applicant did increase the lot widths on the lots backing up to White Drive to between 64 feet and 67 feet in width, which is just under the 70-foot minimum. Side setbacks are 8 feet, which is 2 feet less than the minimum 10 feet, and the minimum 10 feet will still be required where the side yard is shared with an existing single-family house on the southeasternmost lot. No setback reductions are requested for any rear yards. The only other modification requested is related to the sod requirement, which requires the entire lot to be sodded prior to occupancy. Due to the depths of the lots, which on over half of the lots is 60 to 70 feet deeper than required, the PUD includes the using seed rather than sod for the rear yards. Front, side, and rear yards between the house and the street on corner lots will all be sodded. In lieu of those modifications, additional landscaping will be added to the front yards, including an additional front yard tree and shrubs. Architectural elevations of the proposed single-family houses has been provided and include a mix of single and two-story homes. Exterior materials include a mix of stone, brick, horizontal siding, shingle siding, and batten board siding. Staff has added a condition that each elevation include 2 materials if the primary material is horizontal siding. That would eliminate 3 of the elevation J options that are in the proposed elevations in the packet. Concerns have been expressed over the uses of PUDs, which are utilized to allow flexibilities in development standards to improve building and site design standards. This proposal would allow modifications that are not uncommon and in some cases are the same modifications given to the Traditions, which is Belton's largest PUD to date. The proposed developer and builder has been successful with selling new houses in Traditions that are providing new owner-occupied housing options in the city where there are currently few options for that type of housing. They wish to replicate that success here and have stated that their intention is to sell homes for owner occupancy. In lieu of the modifications presented, enhancements have been provided to building materials, site design, and landscaping to create consistency and certainty in the development. The R1-based zoning district does not have any requirements for single-family building materials, landscaping beyond sod and 2 trees, or any variations in front elevations or setbacks to avoid a monotonous streetscape. Additionally, even if this were to remain as the 26 single-family platted lots, since the previous subdivision was not done through a PUD, there is no certainty of what would be built on these lots. If a developer wanted to come in and build 26 single-family houses, we would have no means to tell them no if they wanted to build all of them at 1,200 square feet with the same floor plan, color, and material. A PUD does provide certainty of what is being built and that the developer cannot deviate from those standards without amending the PUD and going back through the public hearing process. As part of the PUD, the applicant has included plans to make off-site improvements at Southview Commerce Centers, buildings 3 and 4, including upgrades to the landscape buffer adjacent to the south property line of the subdivision, with a 10-foot privacy fence instead of the previously constructed 6-foot fence, as well as evergreens and the installation of light shields on 7 light poles. A modification to increase the privacy fence from 8 feet to 10 feet is proposed with this PUD. The applicant stated at the Planning Commission that they do plan on making these improvements this fall. A condition could be added that requires that those installations be completed prior to the issuance of any new home permits. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the rezoning and preliminary development plan on August 20th, at which 5 residents spoke in opposition to the project, citing concerns regarding property values, the quality of construction, the source of materials, concerns that homes would turn into rental units, and frustration with North Point elected officials and staff for not upholding the promises and expectations made in 2021. The Planning Commission voted 4-4 with no recommendation being brought forward to council. The commission postponed the vote on the preliminary plat until after a council decision has been made on the rezoning and the preliminary development plan. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning and the preliminary development plan with the 3 conditions in the ordinance in the staff report. The third condition includes 6 minimum design standards that are tied to the PUD, in addition to the documents attached to the ordinance. Both the applicant and the builder are here this evening to answer any questions, and I'm here for any questions.
Go ahead.
You included the requirements for rezoning in your presentation. So, and part of that was regarding the infrastructure that could be impacted by this new development. And we've already heard from residents concerns about traffic on 155th Street. Has that been taken into consideration in approving this, in the staff's recommendation for approval of this development?
So we only require a traffic study, and I'll let our Assistant City Manager, Public Works Director chime in as well, but we only require those if there is a belief that the additional traffic will require any turn lane improvements or signal improvements, and that is typically not warranted for this number of lots in a single-family development. You're usually looking at 200 to 300 single-family homes before you would need that type of development.
So just
ahead.
real quick on the same topic, since I don't want to jump all over the place. Is 155th, is that MoDOT or is that city?
That is city.
Okay, so we would have to, any improvements we wanted to make on that, we would have to do jointly with Grandview, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
And also part of looking at the rezoning, you have to take into consideration the impact on the existing residents. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And you've heard all of the complaints from the residents who are impacted by this development. Is there anything further the city can do to minimize those concerns?
I think some of the concerns are addressed with the applicant's proposal to go in and improve some of the buffering along the south property line of this development or adjacent to it. Also, some of the lighting improvements to some of the previously installed light poles. I know that the building 4, we did the landscape inspection on that. Everything was good there. The building 3, those inspections were done prior to our current staff team. So, those were approved by a previous team of staff.
Would it be reasonable to require South Point to do the things that they need to do to correct the things that were promised previously prior to approving this plat?
Yeah, and I believe that is what their intent is with the plan. They did provide a plan that is attached to the ordinance for those improvements, and that is why they do have plans to make those this fall. And the developer is here if they can give us an update on where they're at in that process. But their intent was to get that done this fall, and that's why there could be, if there's interest from the council, and adding a condition that all of those installations be completed prior to us issuing any building permits. That would allow us to make sure that is installed before we start issuing permits.
Can I get a clarification on that? What's before us now, is that what was voted out of planning and zoning? Because in planning and zoning, I made a motion to amend to include what you just talked about. Is that this, or do we have to redo that?
We would have to redo that because there was no recommendation brought
Either
forward
way.
from
All right.
Planning Commission.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I think you partially answered my question, but not exactly, because what I was asking is, should we, pardon me, delay approval of the plat until those corrections have been made?
Approval of the rezoning and the preliminary development plan, that is certainly an option. If the applicant wants to provide an update on what exactly that timeline looks like, that could be helpful in making that decision.
I think that's all I have right now. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
So I asked this question, Matt, fully knowing that the city is not involved in HOAs, okay? But that being said, a question was brought up. Can we talk a little bit about, and I realize it's not we wouldn't be in control or ownership or anything to do with this HOA, but we talk a little bit about like just generally how that looks.
So in this situation, the original 26 lots was not going to have an HOA. North Point's, and the only amenity here is a trail connection to the larger 2+ mile walking trail that meanders through Southview Commerce Center. We have not gotten into that level of detail. We typically don't get into the detail of ownership of the tracks until we get to the final plat stage. But my guess, and I will defer to the applicant, is that because that trail is connected to the larger Southview Commerce Center, that they would maintain those 2 tracks that are part of this proposal.
I have more, but I guess I'll go.
Go ahead, get her done.
So I'm gonna take up a little bit of time here. So before I talk further on, like, I guess the proposal itself, I want to take a second, talk about the developer, or not even the developer, I guess. I want to talk about Jennifer, Chris, and Brian, because I think you guys have done a phenomenal job at coming out. You talked to the city council multiple times, and you talked to the residents multiple times, and I think that should be commended, and I want to just take a moment to call that out. That's exactly what we would want someone to do in this type of situation, so I appreciate that. Additionally, you have publicly admitted some shortcomings in the past developments. Specifically, if I'll just use the term warehouses that were put there, and some of that buffering. So again, I appreciate that, and I realize that that public that you coming forward with that publicly has also sparked what the mayor was speaking of, which is that we can hold that for the approval of parcels. I can't think of the right word right now, but the term we were just using. So again, I think that's important. I also know that you have all committed, whether or not this passes, to move forward with those changes. So again, I appreciate that, and I look forward to those changes in general. There are 3 things I want to bring up that I think we should all consider on this particular topic. One has already been talked about, so I won't go into a whole lot of depth, but ultimately the Planning Commission left us with a tie vote and no recommendation. I think that should be considered before we make our decision. 2, this has been brought up as well, and I'll just say that North Point previously in 2021 came before the city council and asked the city council, not us per se, but asked the city council if they wanted to have the residential streets put in then, or wait for the developer. And the answer they received from that city council was to put them in at that time. The reason I believe that's important to bring up is this increase, this proposed increase, the amount of houses is 150% from the currently platted R1 houses. And I am confident that if North Point was covering the cost of those residential streets, the developer would have no problem using larger lots, as the residents are concerned with. And the third piece is just the obvious, that we have had a lot of residents that are in the area impacted that have had some very clear opposition. So I just think we should consider all those things before this vote.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, since this really didn't pass the Planning and Zoning Commission, I really can't support this. I feel there's been a lack of communication and delays in getting these items addressed from 2021. And it's it deeply concerns me on why it's taken so long.
Go ahead.
Do we know what the cost of the infrastructure to build the roads and that? Does anybody know that, or?
If the applicant would like to answer that.
Good evening, Chris Chancellor with North Point Development, 3315 North Oak Traffic Way, Kansas City, Missouri. So I can tell you how much just the infrastructure, the pure infrastructure, was of just purely just building the roads. There's a lot of other costs that go into forming what the lot cost ultimately would be. But you know, it's today it's probably 850 to, you know, maybe just close to $900,000 to build the road infrastructure and the necessary utilities.
Why don't you stay up there? Timeline, time frame on all the other exterior
Yeah.
items?
On the improvements that we, the additional buffering and screening improvements that we said we would do, really it's a fall planting for the trees. So it's really, you know, we've communicated with the landscaper. That material's on order. So now it's a matter of finding the right time to come plant it as the weather breaks. The light shields have been ordered already, so we're waiting on those to come in, and then our electrician will install those on the lights. The dumpsters have already been moved to the other side of Building 3. And then, of course, the fence improvements that we said we would do, those will be done at the same time as the planting of the trees goes in. So, you know, we agree completely, you know, that the building permits would be held until such time that we get those improvements all in place. You can hold the final plat for recording to make sure that that is, you know, that's another mechanism that I think you have to be able to hold the final plat and don't allow it to be recorded until such time we get those improvements done. We're fully committed to getting the improvements done. You know, it's just a matter of timing right now to get us into, you know, October to be able to plant some of those trees.
So, just for clarity, you're going to do these improvements no matter what the outcome of this vote is.
Yeah.
The reason you put it in the PUD was extra incentive to make sure these people understood that it would get done.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
wanted to,
That's right.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
With the reduction in lots, with the backyards facing White Avenue, what does that do for the type of housing that would be backing up to White Avenue?
Yeah,
To the houses on White Avenue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, we have met with the neighbors multiple times to, you know, specifically talk about those lots that back up to them. And, you know, originally we had, I believe, 8 lots in that location, and now we have 6. And as Matt pointed out, you know, the R1 width would be 70 feet. I think we vary 65, I thought it was 68, maybe it's 67 point something in width of those lots. So they're very close to R1 width. And additionally, because of the depth of the lots, you know, being 190, almost 200 feet deep, you know, we walked out with the neighbors to kind of say, hey, let's keep this, you know, 40 feet of screening trees, make sure that we don't take those down. So that's another kind of lever, if you will, in the PUD that says that, you know, as Roush Coleman comes in to build, that they're not allowed to take those trees down. Now, obviously, we, you know, second owner or whatever, you know, doesn't like a tree, they could obviously come out and take their own tree down if they wanted to, but those trees would not come down in the development of the lots, or would it come down as Roush Coleman built the initial houses and sold them? So I would say that the lot widths are consistent, in our opinion, with the R1 zoning, and in an effort to kind of reorient the lots such that the houses moved further away from some of the neighbors' outbuildings and garages that they were concerned about. So the houses now all face, the north-south street. I believe that's Star Times. So those houses all face Star Times now, as opposed to facing 157th, just on that, lots 1 through 6, I believe it is. So, that's, I hope that answered your question, but.
Go ahead.
I have been out.
Well, hold on a second. Are you good?
I'll come back.
Okay, go ahead.
I went out to the neighborhood and talked as well, and I absolutely positively understand their frustration with the improvements that should have been done and kind of have been handed to us as a mess. And I appreciate the fact that you've made a public statement, and we're going to hold you to that public statement, that the improvements will be done.
Sure.
I don't think there's any doubt that something's going to be built there. I like the fact that, kind of in like kind, but I like the fact that the first 6 are larger homes and, kind of complement the neighborhood on White. And then on 157th, that's going to be a bigger house that sits next to Mr. Smith's house. I like all those ideas. I don't like the idea of that lot sitting empty for some problems that we've foreseen happens to empty lots. We have a housing shortage. I don't think that there's going to be any doubt in anyone's mind, or at least in my mind, that the houses will sell. And it is infuriating to me that it's come to this because of just some lack of care, and this stuff should have been addressed sooner. But it is what it is, and I appreciate the fact that you're willing to step up and do that. And I hope that we can calm the water now and can go forward and make this work.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Chris. No, go ahead.
I watched the planning and zoning with this, and my other concern was, I know it's Roush and Coleman building, and somebody had asked if we buy the lot with the terms of them building the house, and we want to request a basement, can we have that? And they said, no, we don't build basements. Is that how Belton, is that where we're going for our future of slab homes? Or, I'm concerned about that they won't even consider putting a basement in a house if somebody wants it, but, and I know I think all the other houses over there have basements, I believe, so.
Go ahead.
I don't want to speak for Roush Coleman, and obviously, if someone wants to build basement homes, that shouldn't be something that the city should be opposed to. I don't think that that the term slab home should be seen as a negative. It doesn't have to be a negative. There are plenty of perfectly nice homes that are on slabs. I mean, in fact, just because there's not a lot in Kansas City, there's a lot in other parts of the country where slab homes are very nice homes, and they're high quality homes. And so, I mean, we don't need to look at slab homes as a bad word, is I guess the only thing I'm trying to say.
And I understand that the promises have been made that all of these things are going to get corrected, but at this point in time, I would move that we postpone a vote on this ordinance until those improvements have been made, to give everybody some trust again that we're observing the process, and that we're holding North Point accountable.
We have a motion to postpone.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to postpone. Any discussion on the motion to postpone?
Who is the second, please?
Alex?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask that the council at least ask the developer and the builder if this is going to affect the possibility of this moving forward, because there is always that possibility that if we move to postpone and we do postpone it now, that this proposal goes away. The builder goes to another project, whatever
So
happened.
I guess, yeah, let's ask that question. That's a valid point. The thought process that I have anyways is that this really isn't that much different than not getting a building permit until those things have been completed, but you're shaking your head, so I'm happy to hear.
No, I would, so, thank you, Mr. City Manager, for raising that point. I was waiting for my best time to jump in and see if I could. So we do have a contract with the buyer that is running out of time. And we have made a commitment to this buyer that we would have resolution to this so that they can then, in turn, they have to have a spring start. So they're going to go find another project somewhere else in order to keep their business going. For us to say that we have to delay uncertainty until November, I think would be a challenge in order to keep our contract alive. The fact of holding building permits or holding a plat, I think what that does is it allows us to say you have certainty that you can in fact come build here. If we say we're just going to table it and talk about it in November, there's no certainty, and they have a decision to make, and we have to respect that decision. So I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, I would also note that the proposed additional condition that the mayor made at the Planning Commission would formally put the condition that those improvements occur into a legal document that would be adopted by ordinance and could be utilized by the city, as failure to comply with an ordinance would be an ordinance violation and a violation of the UDC. Simply saying that we will not approve the preliminary development plan and the rezoning until those actions occur could lead to the developer just, again, walking away, and those additional improvements that have never been put into any legally binding document just not occurring. So from a legal enforcement mechanism standpoint, having that restriction of no building permits in the PUD, which is adopted, and the preliminary development plan, which is adopted by ordinance and acts as an additional land use control that sits on top of the property, makes enforcement significantly more likely to occur.
But we don't have that yet, do we?
But that could be, and the mayor made the motion at the Planning Commission, but since the Planning Commission vote was 4-4, it's not included, but there could be a motion to amend the ordinance that's before the City Council tonight to include that in that ordinance that would then move forward and would then become a part of the legal zoning classification of this property.
So
Go ahead, Alex.
my only question then is, if somebody wanted to remove this current motion, even though it's seconded, could they still do that, or do we need to vote on it either way?
No, you could withdraw the initial motion and the second. That could occur if the people that made the motion in the second would like.
I would withdraw the motion at this time and make a different motion that we amend the ordinance to include the terms and conditions that those necessary improvements be made prior to any building permits being issued. I think that's what we've been talking about.
I'll withdraw my second. Oh, okay.
So, Councilmember Johnson, if I can just restate that as a motion to amend Section 2 of Bill 2024-49 to add numbered paragraph 4, requiring that North Point Development shall construct or cause to be constructed the additional public improvements noted on, I think it's page 18 of the preliminary development plan, prior to the issuance of any building permits for the 39 lots set forth in the preliminary development plan.
Do you need me to withdraw my second?
Yeah, he needs to
Okay,
withdraw.
I withdraw my second.
All right, so now we are back to the original motion, and now you're up with your motion to amend.
No,
No, Councilmember Johnson made a motion on the floor, which Patrick reiterated.
So then I'll second that motion.
Okay.
yeah.
And then again, just for clarity, because I got really verbose and wordy on that,
Yeah, you did.
But are we good with that because he didn't withdraw a second?
No, it is fine. There can be two motions on the floor. That's just now you go into precedent of motion. Since Councilmember McCullum withdrew his motion, now there are not two motions on the floor. The only motion to consider is the motion to amend the ordinance to mandate that the additional public improvements that have been discussed and are noted on, again, best way to describe it would be page 18 of the preliminary development plan occur prior to the issuance of any building permits for this development.
All right, so we had a motion withdrawn and the second withdrawn. Now we have another motion to amend as just stated. And we have a
Correct.
second. So any discussion on the new motion to amend? Go ahead.
I'm not a lawyer, so by what you're saying, they'll be held legally liable. So what's the difference from in March of 2021 when they agreed to do it in front of the city council to put the infrastructure in?
So that specific statement, Councilmember White and Councilmember McCullum brought that to my attention at the last meeting, but neither of those were included into any ordinance or any document that was attached to any ordinance or motions. That was just a statement. Now, with this proposed amendment, it goes from statements to something in an ordinance, which an ordinance is the law, which now this becomes what you guys are discussing tonight. It would formally become something that is the law when it comes to the improvements.
It means that we couldn't legally issue a building permit until those improvements take place.
And I understand that, but I still feel somehow they should have been held liable, because if I would say something that was taped and then would back down, I would.
Raise your microphone up. No, it's pointing at the ground. There you go, sorry.
I would just feel wrong. I mean.
And obviously there are differences. There are such things as oral contracts that can occur between private parties, but unfortunately, as between a public governmental body like the city of Belton, there is no such thing as an oral contract. The only way for a contract to occur is full compliance with 432.070, which mandates it be in writing, that it be subscribed by agents of both parties that were authorized to do so. So again, here we are, those previous statements, all of that was in an informal sort of manner. This transmutes any informal promises or agreements into the law. Because when you approve a PUD in a preliminary development plan, that becomes an additional zoning control that sets on top of the property.
And sorry. I didn't.
Are you good? All right, go ahead.
I'll just add, Councilmember Davidson, that was one of my 3 points, is that ultimately we didn't have a way, the city at least, did not have a way to enforce that, but it was still something that was agreed to, and I think it should be honored.
Go ahead.
So we will vote on this amendment, and then we will go back to the first reading of 2024-49. Okay.
As amended.
Go ahead.
I'll wait till the vote, and then I'll bring up my other thing.
Any more questions on the motion to amend?
I just have one quick question, just
Go
for
ahead.
clarification
No.
purposes only.
Go ahead.
Because I don't think I have the exact PUD document. It's just what I have in my agenda, and it's page 33 that lists the things of the agenda that lists the things that are to be corrected.
Yeah, and I've also noted, I think it's page 28 of the agenda packet, which includes specific notations regarding berm, fencing, light shades. There's not a great way to call it out because it's only numbered in the packet pages. It's not numbered in the preliminary development plan pages, but I basically just backtracked and then counted down to that page.
Right, but when we got to the PUD itself, we could actually enumerate those things specifically. Yes. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'll wait till after the vote, then when we come back to that.
Anybody else on the motion to amend? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we're back to the original motion as amended. Any more discussion? Go ahead.
I'm curious by what Councilmember Richardson asked about basements. So if someone truly wanted a basement, that can't happen in this, that can't happen. So they would have to go someplace else.
In the proposal, they have their models. And so they will be selling their models, and so you buy one of the models essentially with the add-ons, and there are things you can change about it, but the basic structure of the model is the model itself. So you pick one of those models that fits the lot that that someone would be trying to buy from Roush Coleman, and so they don't have any models with basements. And so it's essentially like, here's what we offer. Which one would you like, and which options would you like?
Not to
I'm
be the
struggling a
mayor,
little bit.
but if
Hold on,
you,
hold on.
oh, okay.
I'm struggling a little bit with that option is not available. I don't know why, I just am struggling with it a little bit.
I can
I
tell
didn't
you
think
why.
about it till Chris brought it up.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Brian O'Banion, Roush Coleman Homes, 6811 Shawnee Mission Parkway. Roush Coleman Homes been around 65 years. Last year, we closed on just a little under 5,000 homes. None of those have basements. Our model is not that. We built a lot in the south. We tried basements up here before, just didn't work for us. It's not our model, so we stick to what we know best, and that's slabs.
Go ahead.
No, I was just trying to get that to happen. That was all.
I have one question for North Point, something that was raised from homeowners. There was an indication of an offer to purchase the land from North Point. I'm not sure if it was for all of it or just sections of it, and just what was the upshot of those negotiations, if any?
The only conversation I've had in regard to buying a lot, one of the platted lots, was with one of the adjacent homeowners, and we had developed what the price of that lot would be, and at that time it was determined that it was more than they would want to pay for the lot.
If they were willing to purchase the entire tract, is that something North Point would consider? They being the homeowners adjacent.
Well, we are under
I
contract.
think I'm going to rule that out of order.
Thank you.
I just want to say one thing about a slab home.
Go ahead.
Moved here from Middle Tennessee, and you couldn't build a basement there if you wanted to. So it's limestone, and there's no such thing, and if there was a tornado, we just got in the tub. So.
Anybody else on the motion as amended, 2024-49? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 I don't know where that went.
Can you raise your hands? For a yes vote as amended.
Raise your
I
hand for a
believe I
yes vote.
heard Councilmember White, Johnson, and Mayor Larkey.
How about we just do a roll call?
You could do that too if you'd like.
Make it easier, that's what
So
we're
what are
doing.
we voting on?
We're voting on the motion as amended,
Okay.
and we're doing a roll call, since
Okay.
that's what we're gonna end up doing anyways.
Councilmember Lawson,
No.
Johnson,
Aye.
Thompson,
Yes.
Richardson,
No.
Pryan,
No.
McCallum,
No.
Davidson,
No.
White,
Yes.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes, motion fails. Item 2, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-50.
An ordinance approving the 23rd Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan to approve the 711 C Street project as Development Project 2024-4 and to authorize tax abatements as described therein.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The item in front of you is an approval for public improvements and tax abatement at 711 C Street, requesting approval for improvements of estimated improvements of $100,000, focused mostly on landscaping and exterior, though you'll see in the estimate a breakdown of some interior improvements as well. Based on the project, we are estimating property taxes with these improvements could increase from about $1,560 to roughly $4,000 annually over the 10-year abatement period. Through the abatement, though, they would be receiving the 90% for that 10-year period. If the project is approved, staff will prepare the memorandum of understanding, the quitclaim deed, and certificate of tax abatement for approval by the Old Town Belton Redevelopment Corporation Board. Once all of the improvements have been made, the quitclaim deed and certificate of tax abatement will be processed through the county. The request follows the Old Town Belton Redevelopment Plan policy adopted in 2021. Staff does recommend approval, and the Old Town Development Board Corporation Board recommended unanimous approval on this project as well. Happy to answer any questions about the project that you may have.
Any questions? Discussions?
Public hearing.
Go ahead.
We need to open the public hearing, please.
Oh, public hearing regarding the proposed 23rd Amendment to the Old Town Belton Redevelopment Plan for Redevelopment Project 2024-04 pursuant to RSMO Section 353.110.3 and subparagraph 2 is open. Anybody wish to speak for or against, come to the microphone and state your piece. Again, I will state a public hearing regarding the proposed 23rd Amendment to the Old Town Belton Redevelopment Plan for Redevelopment Project 2024-04 pursuant to RSMO Section 353.110.3, subparagraph 2 is open in a public hearing. If you wish to speak your piece, come forward. Hearing and seeing nobody coming forward, public hearing is closed. Now we're back to council. Does council have any discussion? Go ahead.
I'm just going to follow up on a conversation from the last, from the 22nd amendment, because I want to, this one brought further another question for me. The board has already approved this, correct?
That is correct.
Do they approve? And then we talked about the cost being vetted, right? So ultimately, those receipts and whatever has to still go back to the board, or how, can you just remind me of that?
Absolutely. So the board makes the initial approval, and really that first approval is, does the project fall within the policy as written by the Old Town Board, the redevelopment board? So the board votes on that initial approval. It comes to council for the final analysis and the approval of the tax abatement. What goes back to the board, part of the creating the memorandum of understanding and the quitclaim deed, is the board then approves the actual contract between the homeowner and the board, that they will follow the state outline stipulations as well as the cost certification process, the permitting process, and various other things that are within that MOU in order to require them to provide those receipts. The cost certification process is they provide all those receipts, and I'll make a final determination on what the actual final tax abatement value actually is. And that's based on the receipts, again, outlined in that MOU that have to be presented in a specific way.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-51.
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $15,250,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2024, of the City of Belton, Missouri, and certain other documents and actions by the city.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're up.
Okay, I'll just give you guys a quick recap. We did have a resolution a couple of meetings ago. So this is the same general obligation bond, but in ordinance form. So a little bit of background. In 2019, Belton voters authorized the issuance of 14.25 in general obligation bonds for stormwater system projects. In October of 2019, the city issued 11 million of the 14.25, leaving 3.25 authorized but unissued. In 2022, Belton voters authorized the issuance of 21 million in general obligation bonds for street and road projects, And in July of '22, the city issued 9 of that 21, leaving $12 million in authorized but unissued. The City Council approved the go-to-market resolution July 9th of '24 this year, authorizing city staff, bond counsel, and the city's financial advisor to begin the process of issuing the remaining 15.25 of GEO bonds voted authority for stormwater and street improvements. So the next step in issuing general obligation bonds to consider is this bond ordinance before you tonight.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Are we in a rush?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I spent some time with Mr. Rokos. Sorry, I thought you were
No,
still
go ahead.
okay.
No, go
I
ahead.
spent some time with Mr. Rokos talking about what this all entailed, and so I am comfortable and confident that we are going after the right thing here. My only ask from all that is what we had already talked about, which is once this is approved, assuming it gets approved, that we do get that updated on our city website, just so the residents can go out and see where their money's going. So,
Any other questions? Discussion? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any more?
I don't have any more.
All right. No other discussion? All in favor of motion 2024-51?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-52.
An ordinance amending the schedule of fees of the City of Belton, Missouri, as set forth in the Code of Ordinances, City of Belton, Missouri, as it relates to the rates charged by the Belton Fire Department for ambulance transportation services to reflect the Medicaid-approved rates for the same.
Present.
second.
A motion and a second. You're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. And so we brought this before you tonight because our billing company had reached out because Medicaid had increased the amount that they allow for charging for mileage. As you know, we run the EMS transport service. We rely on part of our revenue to come from that. Last year, approximately 1.69 million of our revenue came from that. It's never going to be enough to cover the entire cost of our service. We know that we're offering a public service. But that's primarily why we're doing that tonight. I only chose to look at and attempt to increase the mileage rates. Been talking with the finance director. Since I've been fire chief, the ambulance billing is quite complicated, and so that's why we have a third-party company do it. But we feel like it's time for us to sit down and take a little bit deeper dive into it in the coming months to decide how we look at comparison to other area fire departments and just look at our collection and billing practices to make sure we're doing the right things by the public. And so that's to come in the future as well. I'm going to leave it at that for a minute because I know Councilman McCallum has some questions, so I think that I'll be able to hopefully enlighten a little more here.
Go figure. Go ahead. You're up.
Hey, I try to.
No, you're
I
good.
make sure
No,
I make sure they're aware of my questions ahead of time.
Believe it
so
or not,
that
I
we're
got
not,
questions on this too, so
okay,
go ahead.
all right. So thank you for answering my questions ahead of time and allowing me to get some good thinking time on this. If we were to not approve this increase, can you talk about what that would do on your budget?
Well, as I say, this never settles enough. When a large part of our budget comes from the general fund, and so it's still survivable. We're just trying to offset a little bit. There's been a lot that's happened. Everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, with our salaries, and we see what we did in our last CBA, and so we're just trying to be diligent to help keep up with some of that. And so we would continue business as usual. As I had reported in the car, and I probably should have expressed it in a different way. I was trying to express really that is a possible increase, right? What I did was I took last year's transport miles, multiplied it by the increased amount. Well, that 101,000 is going to be the increased billed amount, not the increased collection amount, because we find ourselves only collecting around 37% of what we bill for the most. And so that's the other challenge. Some of that comes through write-offs from insurance companies and things like that. A lot of that comes because another point that I think you're going to make is that approximately 9% of our revenues was from Medicaid. And I really lump Medicaid and Medicare together because they bill and pay much in the same way. And mileage is one of those things that Medicare is a little bit different, but they'll pay all the mileage as long as we took them to an appropriate hospital. So it's one of those they don't haggle on. But if you would collectively put Medicaid, Medicare together, they were about 25% of our revenues, but they're nearly 50% of our call volume. So I like to maximize, if they're willing to put the money on the table, I like to maximize what we bill them because they're the ones that take away the most when they pay. And we have to take what they pay. We have no option to get it in any other way. So I'm not sure I answered your original question there, though.
Oh, you did originally, and then you went on my other question, which actually I think you worded a little more succinctly that time. So that makes a lot more sense, actually. And then just based on like the overall numbers, if I'm looking at this correctly, and I think I was, because I had, did Casey walk out? I had Casey on copies, and she didn't say my numbers were wrong, which is approximately 91% of this, of last or current years. I don't remember if it was last year's or current years.
That was 23.
Okay, of last year's numbers didn't come from individuals. They were coming from insurance mandated fees, or not mandated, but insurance-based
Payments?
Yeah, insurance-based payments.
That would be insurance and private pay.
Yeah, but because you had the breakout, right? And when I take out the private, it's largely based on insurance, which makes me think that we should probably move forward with this. You know, but I wanted to understand
and a fair
the
statement
impact.
there, and you had asked a little bit about insurance, and I've experienced this since I've been here. For whatever reason, it hardly matters how good of an insurance a person has on the private side. I think every insurance I've ever had here maxes out at $500, and you're kind of left with the rest, or the person is left with the rest. So that is, to your point, I want to be sensitive to what we're trying to charge people, and it's not the easiest of times, and everything's going up. But we're just trying to make a balance here to know that we're still providing a service, and that but we're also trying to be a little bit fiscally responsible to try to gain what we can to continue improving the service, if that makes sense. And I also wanted to point out that the last time, we don't really mess with rates a whole lot. The last time rates were changed was in 2017, and that was a change to the base rates. And so we divide those into two. We charge our residents less for the base rate. So that's basically, hey, we called you out and you treated us and took us somewhere. And in 17, that increased from $950 to $1,150 for a non-resident, and for the resident, it was from $700 to $950. And the last time that we've made any changes in mileage was back in 2012.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was my question. It was 2017, but I think we raised the mileage then too.
I found some things that were in there, and there was discrepancies. There was an original document that said that it was going to only increase it by 10 cents, but I don't think that the finished document, I think it ended up staying the same rate at the $17.50 that it is.
Right. One of my questions was, why haven't we looked at raising this since 2017?
It's a good question. It's out of sight, out of mind. We've just been letting the billing company work in the background.
Not why haven't we? I mean, why haven't we? I mean, I'm not blaming why we haven't.
Right.
Should we look at this?
I think so, and that's exactly why here it's kind of poor timing as we come into budget preparation as far as timing and having time, but we think it's a very important time to look at and comparing us again, like happened in 2017, to other area services, and just kind of looking at our billing practices and collection practices. So that's to come here in the next few months.
All right. That's all I had. Anybody else? Go ahead.
And just a simple question, should it be set up at a timeline that we look at it every?
We probably will do that. So I did have, when Patrick looked at this and he drafted this ordinance, what we wanted to do, since Medicare and Medicaid is, again, it's a large, it's almost half of our volume of calls. He worded this ordinance so that if they make a change to the rates, it automatically updates the schedule of fees.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion carries.
All right.
Take a drink. Item 5, motion approving resolution 2024-74.
A resolution approving a maintenance and service agreement with Stryker Corporation to provide service and maintenance on the department's Lucas CPR devices.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
This is pretty standard. We've had contracts with Stryker. Stryker does a lot of things now. So they are the supplier of our stretchers and the loaders that we put in the ambulance. They're the providers of our physio control monitors that we use, and they're also the providers of this Lucas CPR product, which is what we put on folks so that it automatically does compressions for us to free up other people's hands and to provide just that continuous CPR. And so they're fairly important pieces of machine that we want to make sure that are within the standards. And so they come in and do the preventive maintenance, and then these contracts includes 100% of any maintenance and breakage on them, and so they fix them. The reason we're redoing it now is because we kind of extracted this from the physio control, because we chose not to pay for that part because some of our machines are so old, they're wanting us to do them annually. So we extracted those out with the thought of we're trying to search what we can do in budget for those, and we just put the Lucases by themselves.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, motion approving resolution 2024-75.
A resolution approving the purchase of one power stretcher with 6-year maintenance agreement from Stryker Corporation in the amount of $36,424.46.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. You're still up.
Yeah, I wanted to feel like Greg tonight. I wanted to do a lot of stuff. This is just kind of a standard replacement. These machines, when we get them, they kind of have a set lifetime up front. Admittedly, some of these companies, especially when they know they have the corner, they start to push it there, kind of like an Apple. They say it's not going to work until you get a new one. But we have used the current stretcher that we're going to replace for 13 years, and so that took it a couple years beyond the first expectations anyway. So this is just kind of getting us into a rotation of changing out our 5 stretchers periodically.
Is that a typo, the price?
No.
It seems cheap from 7 years ago.
Well, it's only one. It's only one though, and it's not the loader. So this is just a stretcher, not the loader.
It's just a stretcher, not the loader. Okay.
And this is because I'm doing it a little bit different and syncing the entire maintenance contract up front too, because it saves us some money.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And guess what? He's still up. Motion approving resolution 2024-76.
A resolution approving a software agreement between City of Belton Fire Department and Station Automation DBA PS Tracks for a hosted software service to assist in the tracking of facilities, ambulance-controlled substance supplies, vehicle maintenance, and other consumable supplies.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
So this is a solution that does a lot of things for us. In our world, we do a lot of things with different softwares, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, we can't find a software company that will put every single thing we need into one. And so we had used our image trend to do some of our stuff that it does things like our truck checks and things that the folks can check off and kind of prove that everything was up to standard and ready to go. They're very clunky, hard to do, and so that's one thing we're trying to solve with this. The other is we track narcotics every day, so we carry narcotics in the ambulances and the fire trucks, and DEA is fairly strict on those sorts of things, and so right now we've been tracking that on paper. And it's very problematic sometimes, and so what we're trying to do is increase our ability to track and find out when things aren't right, make sure we know exactly where drugs are. And so those were the two primary reasons we bought this or want to buy this, but the other is it can track literally almost every consumable item we have, and so we feel like it's going to help us do a better job of keeping track of what we're doing and being accountable for it.
Any questions?
All right, I think this is an easy one. Softball. In the agenda, our packet, it said there will be savings from other items in the fiscal year 25. That'll help
Good
cover
question.
this. Can you talk about what that is?
We had initially planned on a couple things that didn't really work out from our software items. And so this was a little bit of a manipulation. Since we hadn't budgeted for this, they allowed us, they are prorating us for this year, which we had enough in the things that we didn't purchase to handle the prorate. And so they're foregoing the setup, even though they're gonna set it up for us now, because the company does all that. They're gonna forego that until the FY '26 year, and so then we'll be able to better plan for paying them to implement it. Then it'll be an ongoing maintenance cost after that.
All right.
Go ahead.
And in reading this, it's something that can be used on a phone or a tablet, whatever they happen to be carrying, and track that way.
Yeah, and so on the trucks, we have iPads on them that they can use. We just do that, and most of them will choose to use their phone, but we do have options in the trucks or the phone, because we don't want to force them to use their phone since we don't pay for them. But yes, it should be very handy and easy for it to do it right there.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, motion approving resolution 2024-77.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the Second Amendment to contract for waste collection services between the city of Belton, Missouri and GFL Environmental Incorporated.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And look who's here.
Finally, someone different.
Save the best for last, right? So, this is an amendment to the contract to allow us to do two specific things. One is to add recycling to city facilities and establishing the price for recycling and trash. And it also changes the dollar amount for the late fee to $50. And so in the last city council, probably one of the last meetings that was held, one of the councilmen brought up about there's not recycling at our city facilities. And so over the last several months, we've negotiated with the company to establish recycling at the city facilities, and they would be 4 cubic yard dumpsters, similar to the one that sits in the back of the annex today. And so now we would have 2 dumpsters, one for recycling and one for non-recycling materials. We establish a tipping fee, and so we can adjust the amount of times that it needs to be tipped, whether, the trash now may not need to be tipped, but once a month. We have a much lower fee for it, so it should save us money overall and still provide us recycling at our city facilities. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Go ahead.
I'm just going to say shout out to Rob Powell. I'm glad he brought this up, and I'm glad that the city staff has been diligent in making this happen. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So you answered one of my questions. I didn't even have to ask you ahead of time. It was great. But I want to make sure I understand that. I think that last thing you said there, which was will this reduce our city building non-residential costs for trash pickup, or does it have the potential to reduce it? Because I think those are two different things.
To reduce what?
The costs.
For residential trash pickup?
No. For city building non-residential, so just for the city facilities, is it going to actually reduce our costs like today, or is it just going to potentially reduce our costs because we'll have less pickups, like you were talking about?
No, it will definitely reduce our costs. Everyone was paying a different cost. Over time, every department got their own trash service a different way. And so we have wide variety of trash tipping costs that we have currently today. Some are up to $250 for the same can, and some are $68. And so I leveraged that, which was the fire department's price, believe it or not, to use that price for the entire city. So there are multiple departments that this will be 25% of the cost that they're paying today.
Awesome. And I'll say thank you to Mr. Powell as well, and I just want to say thank you to everybody, whoever worked on this. I know Joe and I had talked about this because I've had residents in my ward come and ask about this specifically because they wanted a follow-up, and so here is finally that follow-up, so I appreciate it.
Thank you to the fire department, too.
It wasn't him.
No, that's not true. I negotiated one, and I told him the other day I actually got it lower again.
Oh.
I started recycling, though. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, one motion not available to approve recommendations noted by any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. H, communication from city council.
I thought the Dog Days event went really, really well. Had not a lot of attendance, but pretty good attendance, and I think everybody seemed to enjoy it, and a lot of traffic on Main Street that particular day, so that was a great event.
All right. The Belton Education Foundation Gala just took place over this last weekend. I saw a number of other council members there, and I'll just say it was a great event, and I think a lot of money was raised for our community here. Parks has, then I'm going to switch to Parks updates. So there was a few things this weekend that just took place. There was the final clean out of the outdoor pool in which they let the dogs, anybody bring their dogs and go wild. And I heard the number was, it was either 77 or 87. I'm not sure what they finally figured out what it was, but either way, we had a lot of dogs show up. I heard it was a really good time. Meanwhile, later that day, I had the joy of attending the princess party. And I did say that correctly. I will say my daughter absolutely loved it and had a really good time. So just awesome events put on by Parks, and want to commend them for that. We do have the car show coming up, taking place on September 28th. So I want to remind everybody of that. And then the farmers market is coming to a close very soon. It'll actually be the end of this month, right? So that means, unless I'm looking at a calendar wrong, there's only 3 left, including this week. So make sure you get out there and enjoy some fresh air and some fresh food.
You're up.
We have Fall Fest coming up this weekend. Starts Friday at 5 o'clock. They got a lot of good events going, a lot of good stuff for kids. So come on up there, 5 o'clock Friday, and then all day Saturday. So come up and have some fun.
I'll just second what Chris said about Fall Fest this weekend.
Well, since both of mine are taking dog days, I actually got to judge some dogs, and I had to wear some floppy-eared things, so I look pretty good, actually. Fall Festival, enjoy it this weekend. Should be a good time. So I don't know why I went out of turn, but go ahead.
You stole my thunder. I also attended Dog Days. I was a little disappointed. The Wienermobile stood us up, so hopefully they can make that up to us at a future event. But my granddaughters were disappointed they couldn't see it.
I'm good. It's been covered.
Went to the gala, had a great time, saw a whole bunch of people that I had not met before, and sat with people that I had never talked to before, so that's never a problem for me. I also want to give a shout out to the Senior Citizen Center. I've been going to their Tai Chi classes every Thursday, and it's actually been really fun, and they just do a great job over there. I wish there were more people attending, but I've gone a couple times. Well, it's a 16-week course, and I've gone to all of them except 2. So far, it's been a fun thing at the Senior Citizen Center.
Homeless Committee met. We're working on application for assistance and finalizing mission statements, those kind of things. Moving forward.
You're up.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I have 2 things. One is the city is teaming, let's see, there's going to be a Love Your Career Expo on October 22nd, so it's essentially a job fair. And the event is open to anybody who wants to go. It's going to be at Belton High School. Hang on a second. Yep. 602 Mauer Parkway, so 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on October 22nd. So that's where that Career Expo is going to be. And then MML's next week, and so we'll have, I believe, 5 council members attending the Missouri Municipal League annual conference. So hopefully we'll come back with some cool ideas. That's it.
All right, boards and commission meeting minutes. They're on there. They're in your packet if you got any questions. Item K, items for review and discussion. Item 1, Laserfish Document Center demonstration.
Oh, good evening, Mayor and Council. I am very pleased to be here this evening to show you what we've been working on since we received the grant back in September of 2023 for laserfish. So on our city homepage, we've created a tab under Government called Document Center. And that takes you to the laserfish portal, and that's our record-keeping area for all the minutes and agendas, boards and commissions. We do have some direct links to the current year agendas and minutes, as well as all of the historical documents. We've currently populated the agendas and minutes back to 2017. We're obviously working on the rest of it, but it takes quite a bit of time to go back 150 years. But we do have it back to 2017. The boards and commission minutes and agendas are 2023, and we're actively working on getting it back to 17. On this homepage, you'll find a search bar here, and I always like to search for the word dog. I don't know why, but that's always my choice when I search. It's going to search through everything that's uploaded here for the word dog. So it does take a minute.
Should have did chickens.
Ah, should have. Actually, while the meeting was happening, I used it to look up John's ordinance for the ambulance in 2017 and immediately found it, which I'll show you afterward, to see when the fees were changed. Usually it's slightly faster. Obviously, it's going to depend on the computer that you're using. There are 652 hits for the word dog. But Laserfish does use fuzzy matching, meaning it's going to show you like items, not only just the item that you chose. So as you scroll down, you can see that it also found the word do and dogs plural. It even picked up Michael Doy, who was the previous Public Works Director. So do put quotation marks around it, and you will get exactly what you're looking for and much fewer hits, which should come up to 94, 95. How to move my paper so I can see the screen. So the most recent hit was an ordinance in 2011. You can see here that it's an ordinance, the ordinance number. You can see that it has 20 pages total. It was this is when we uploaded it, so don't look at that. But you can see down here that the first reading was November of 2021, and the second was in December of 2021 when it was approved. If you go to show more information, it will always show you the first 5 pages. Not necessarily helpful, but it could be. And it's going to show you that it was a code amendment of some kind. If you click on the individual page, it will take you right to where it has highlighted the word dog, or you can click the ordinance itself and it will pop up all 20 pages. The next one is Planning Commission minutes. Something happened in 2021. You can see that it was January of 2021, something at the dog park. You can click on the pages, click on the minutes, it will open up, and so on as you keep going. I'll go back to the top and show you what I found with ambulance. As John mentioned, the ordinance was in 2017, so that made it easy to find quickly in the sense that I can ignore these because the year will always be at the beginning, so I know these isn't what I'm looking for because it's 2024. And there is the ordinance from 2017. You can tell a little bit, it says ambulance charges for services, so you can be fairly confident that that's probably the one, and its fire is tagged on it as the department.
Pull that up. That was a good ordinance.
Yeah, let's look at it. May not be exactly what you were remembering, but let's look at it. Because I did look at it during the meeting. Yes, all of it's here, of course, in the ordinance. This is what I'm guessing John was referring to between the 10-cent difference, which is
That's
odd.
When he said that,
Yeah, that's very odd. There is a memo here because it's all attached as part of the ordinance of why we're changing it, what we did in the past, what the change is going to be. And this portion here, I think the confusion was that it says keep loaded mileage as the same as 1760. And that's what was being referenced to, but that's the ordinance. From here, if you find something that you like, you want to download, you want to print, you can print the print icon, choose what you want, just like any other time. You can download and print it. You can download to PDF. You can save it. In this case, it's opening up the PDF, and if I wanted to save this on this computer, obviously you just save to the computer. Also, you may have noticed, which many of you did, that we changed our agenda upload this past time for the meeting. Right now, this meeting is uploaded here, and it will take you straight into the Document Center, into the Laserfish Public Portal, where again, you can print, you can download whatever you'd like to do with this agenda. It shows it as the HTML version, that's the language on the screen. We've found a way to change that, so I'll show you what you'll see going forward after tonight. It will simply say minutes, or in this case, it would say agendas if it were uploaded that way, and take you to the same spot. So this is the last city council approved minutes, which I uploaded after the last meeting. And again, print, download, whatever you'd like to do from there. We've been very pleased with the outcome of the software. Our first year was paid for by the grant. I just got my first bill last week, and very pleased with the cost, what it will do. It's just absolutely amazing, and unfortunately, Julia couldn't be here tonight, but I wish she were here to talk about all the great things. She's uploaded quite a bit of this information, as well as Madison in the permitting department. She's done a lot of planning commission items, and Shanna in the park department has also uploaded quite a bit of park agendas and minutes. Last week, Greg asked me to research something, and it took me over 3 hours to research it for a couple of ordinances. But once I found them, I uploaded them, so I'll never have to do that research again, and tagged them to make sure I could find them again. But yeah, I could easily do his project now in 10 to 15 minutes, which took me a half a day on Friday. So it's a great tool for you, a great tool for the citizens. It's been great for us, even just helping staff. And now knowing that staff can go there too and see all the items that are up there. Council members will have a Laserfish login and password, which I'll connect with each of you individually at a later date, which will allow you to have more access than what's here. But this has just been absolutely wonderful. It gave us what it advertised that it was going to give us. But I would be happy to answer any questions, or if you want to see anything else.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say your enthusiasm is contagious.
Oh, we love it.
I also love it. This is very cool. Thank you, and to all the staff that's
Yes.
worked on it. This is going to be helpful.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Now, when do you think you'll have all 150 years?
Well, I have repeatedly asked staff to give me at least 5 years, but maybe before I retire.
I
We
think he's
did start-
volunteering to help.
Can you load back 150 years? That was going to be my question. Do we have
I
that?
know.
Do we have that?
We do have some of it. I know that prior, we did a very large scanning project and Laserfish microfilming in the year 2000, which gave us a lot of our older documents. I do have access to some of the things from 100 years ago. I'm not sure about 150, but certainly we will do everything we can find, and
Cool.
looking forward to it. I found a document yesterday from 1940. It was original. The paper was okay. Like, it was in decent shape. The staples came out with no problem. They just like,
Interesting.
it was very interesting to look back at it.
Go ahead.
From a digital space, like let's say you had 10,000 people working for you, and you could get 150 documents, 150 years worth of documents uploaded tomorrow. Does it allow us to have that much space? Because I assume it takes digitally up a lot of space then.
It does. With our contract, we receive 900 gig of cloud space. We can buy additional gigs, and we've currently, because we looked yesterday, we've currently uploaded 30 gig, I think it was. We upload everything in black and white as much as we possibly can. Obviously, if you have maps or things that really do require color, we upload in color.
Your enthusiasm was awesome, and it makes us know that we have, supported the right decisions from a financial perspective that go after these things that make not only your life better but everybody's. So that's great to see. Are you worried at all that you're going to work yourself out of a job now that I don't have to go bug you and ask you all these questions?
No, because I will keep it limited to what you have access to. No. No, it really frees up more time in our department to make sure that we're doing the things that we need to continue to do outside of ordinances, resolutions, and minutes and
Yeah,
agendas.
it was mostly facetious asking that question.
Yes.
This is maybe a Charlie question, but in terms of getting this demo, I know it's going to be a part of our upload on YouTube, but getting a shortened version that has just your demo or something similar to that we could get shared out to the public, I would love to see that. Just so people know it's there, because I imagine we're not the only ones that'll be excited about this.
Yeah. I talked to Charlie last week and asked him if we could work on something for tomorrow.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
As you do look through it, as you use it, if you have questions, please let me know. Or if something's not working correctly or not as you think what you're planning to have it work, please let me know, because I want to make sure that it's correct.
Anybody else?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Item 2, My Belton demonstration.
Everything does open in a new tab, so you have a million tabs up at the top after that. That's good.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So before I call Alara up here to go through the actual demonstration, I just wanted to go just a quick timeline of where we have been with this project. This is our request tracker, or kind of the request tracker that the council had approved this past spring in May. We have been diligently working with our vendor Catalyst to build the platform, get it customized to our requests to our departments. Alara has been working with staff this whole summer on getting them trained, getting them ready. We are excited. The council this past year really put an emphasis on improving our customer service throughout the organization. One of the things we recognized was not everybody may know who they need to call immediately when they want to report a pothole or when they want to request a service from the city. And so this really creates a platform where anybody can go to the website, they can download the app, submit a request, or even call us. And we now have a single point of contact where anyone can make a request. We're able to track it. We're able to keep the data on it across the city. So regardless of what department they actually contacted. And so with that, I really want to invite Alara up here to kind of talk about the project she has been working on building this platform and what it's going to do for our residents and how it's going to help improve our customer service from a technology standpoint.
Good evening. So the best way to describe this is to show you everything that we have built. So here we go on our homepage. If you would like to get access to the My Belton, you're just going to come here to under the Contact tab and either under Request Service, create My Belton account or report a concern will get you to our homepage. So this will be our homepage, and this is going to be the logo, the My Belton, and this will be the main platform page where someone can go to the website to either download the app, create an account, and make a service request. Here, we do have an app that was made for the city. It is available now through Google Play, and we are still waiting on Apple Store to get that up. So hoping to get that up. I know it's been, so we are working on that. we did ask so that when someone does want to make a request, that they do need to create an account. And so the minimum amount of that we are asking for is an email address. So for someone to make a request, they will need to create an account. And the wonderful thing about creating an account is they can go back and look at every request that they have made. They can find the status of the request and even add any extra information. So I'm going to go through a demo here of what it looks like to set up an account, to put a request in, and then what it looks like on the back end for staff. So here on the main page, I do want to say that we do have 2 educational videos here. So there is a video here on how to create an account, and then also another video that also walks step by step on how to create a request. So if someone was brand new, they would click up here to create account. I'm not going to walk through it all the way, because if you want to know how to do that, you just click here and watch the 3-minute video. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in since I already have an account. Oops. Okay. All right, so I am logged in. So now I can come down here and we have 3 options. So we have a knowledge base section, a place to request for service, and contact information. I actually want to start with the knowledge base. So staff came together and created knowledge base articles, and each of these knowledge base articles are connected to a request. So for example, here's ones that we have recently added. If I want to search up here, say I want to look for something of customer service, see if I have anything in there. Nope. So let's do codes, see if I have anything here for codes. There we go. So you can actually use a word and search, and that's one of the ways that you can find a knowledge base article. So we'll click here. A lot of these have handouts, and oh, it's not working. Blocked. And this is why we're also doing soft launch to find any issues or any bugs. Let's see if we can find here. There we go. So here we have just really helpful information that can provide extra support and tools and education for our residents about anything that is connected to how things get completed or anything that they need referring to codes or ordinances around the city. Going back, so now I'm going to show you how to make a request. All right. So here the first thing it's going to ask is what type of issue. So there's 2 ways that we can find what kind of issue we are looking for. We can actually push the down arrow, and you're going to see here we have different tabs, different themes, and also different departments that you can search for. We have under fire, and we have a very robust request tracker with lots of different options for our residents. Another way that we could search is to actually put the word in, and it will pull up any word that is associated with any of the requests. So I can use an example, maybe grass. Anything that is there with grass or weeds. But for our example today, I'm going to use customer service. So I have it in here that if anyone has any questions on how to use this, or they need help, or just want to follow up on a request. So this will be our example today. So as you see here, each request is going to ask for different information, have different questions, and this yellow box is going to have a unique prompt depending on what we have asked for as city staff. So here I'll want to request you, I would like to follow up on a request. Just put my name in, phone number, and we do make it a minimum that a some kind of a comments does need to be added for every request. So I'll just go ahead and put test here. Residents are able to upload up to 5 photos or videos, and we do have a very strong firewall so that we won't have any viruses or inappropriate things being able to be uploaded. So I can hit next. And I really love this part. So as you see here, now we can choose where we would like the request, where it is that we need the assistance. Not every request requires a location, but most of them do. So you'll see here that we have the map and the outline of Belton. And so if someone tries to ask for a request outside, it says we will not service that area. So they can only ask for a request inside city lines. All right. There we go. So there we are. Another, whoop. All right, so another neat thing here is if you want to change the view of the map, there are different views that you can use. And you can even put the little guy down here and look at where you need. So just really neat ways to be able to find where it is that you need your request. You'll notice down here that this request also has knowledge base articles connected with that. So they could click on here and get the information to any of the knowledge base articles. Once I'm complete, I will click Create Request, and then I will get put to a confirmation page. This yellow box is going to be the average time it's going to take to get a request complete. So we worked very hard with staff on creating very unique time frames and questions for each request. Here you're going to see that each request has a unique ID, and this will show and have all the information that I just entered in. Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does this tie in with MoDOT? Like if someone says there's a pothole on 49, what's it going to give them? Is it going to say not in our service area, or can it kick them over to MoDOT?
At this time, we decided with Public Works that we were just going to put, there is a way to do that, but at this time, we have not added that layer in, but there is a way to add a GIS map layer in to where we will only serve certain streets and roads, and at that time, at this point, we decided that we weren't going to add that layer in yet. This main round was to really build the bones and the structure, and then as we work in the system, decide down the road, do we need more layers, do we need more questions? So we're going to be at a time of really opening up for feedback from staff as well on that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is this currently live?
It is.
So-
It is live.
Because I heard you say something about a soft test and
Yes.
whatnot. So another question I had, which I think I know I know the answer to, but what happens if someone doesn't want to create an account, but they would still like to report something?
Yeah, well, at this time, they do have to create an account, and that's a good question. I think we're still working on a best practice for that. If someone does want to call in, I will receive to put in a request over the phone. If they really don't want that, that is an option.
So
At this time, unless
So they wouldn't have
not-
ability to view they wouldn't have ability to view follow-up and that kind of thing, but we would still track it internally because you would input it.
Correct, yeah. Ultimately, in order for us to track the request and provide the kind of communication expectation that council has set, we do need at least some form of communication with them, either through an email address or a phone number. And, Catalyst gave us the option. They said we could have as much contact information, or we could reduce it down to just the email address. And we thought, to start, let's just keep it at the email address, just so that, again, part of the platform is we're able to provide communication back to that resident throughout the life of that request. That really kind of was the intention behind it. But again, there's also, and kind of what she'll talk about a little bit, is there's the third button, that contact form. Someone can go and use that just general contact form if they truly want to remain secret and anonymous, then they can. But again,
So-
for us to track it, we want to make sure that we have some kind of communication.
You're starting to figure me out. So that's my next question is, what if somebody does want to stay anonymous? They don't want to know that they're telling on their neighbor's long grass or something like that. How, say that again? There's a form, the paper form they fill out, or what are you talking about?
So as part of the page, so this third item here, this contact, we currently use a jot form essentially on our website. This form still exists on the website.
So is this is what's current, this was what was, so that's my next question, is we had something in place for codes specifically where you just go onto the website, you type in, hey, you know, whatever the problem is, and so is that this, or is that gone now, or is that?
So for codes, if I can navigate there fairly quickly. Sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing that far. There we go. Well, there's a keyboard covering it, but. So there is currently a button. Where was your button? Is it?
Code.
There we go. So you have this button here, click here to report a code violation.
Yeah.
That's
going to change, and that is going to go to the tracker.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so presently they're both live, but we're going to get rid of this one because it's all going to go to that tracker.
Correct.
And we actually talked with Charlie, and so technically they're both on, and we talked with Charlie, and so we're doing a soft launch right now. So today is our soft launch, and then on October 1st, we're going to start all of our marketing. And so we were going to give it until the end of the month to transition to take these forms off. And I believe Charlie had it on that we were even going to go through, I don't remember the time frame, but there was going to be a note on here that's saying this page was going to be changing on the way that you can make a codes request. So we did talk about, how we can slowly transition that out to this new way, because we really want the tracker to be the main way that all the requests come in into one form, and then that way we can also get all the information and nice and organized there.
That all makes perfect sense. If I imagine I'm not the only one out there that when they find, something, a website, whatever, they just bookmark it. And then later you come back and you go, oh, that bookmark doesn't work anymore, error, like that page doesn't exist. You go, crap, now I got to find this thing again. So I definitely would like us to have that out there that, hey, this page is moving, so people know that's happening ahead of time for sure.
Thank you for that feedback. All right. Come back here. Okay, so now the request has been made. I don't know where we went. Anyway, okay, there we go. Okay, so as a resident, this is what I see on the back end. I can come up here to my requests, and this is going to be where all my requests are. So if I want to go back in, I can see all the updates, notes from staff. I can just click into here, and then anything that we put on the back end, any notes, will all show up here. It'll show the status, who is working on it, and if they need to come back in and add any more information, they can also come back in here on the back end. So I think that's another perk of having your own account, is you can have all the access to all the requests that you've made. Now I'm just going to show you a quick view of what this will look like on the back end for staff. All right. So Mike and I are the managers on this, and so we will be under this tab under the call center. And here we will be able to see every single request that comes in through the request tracker. For the rest of staff, all of their information is going to be under the service requests. And you see here, this was the request that I received. Staff will, each request on the back end is connected to certain staff members. And so when a request comes in, that is connected to that staff member, they will receive an email letting them know that there is now a request that they need to take action on. So here, when they open it up in the back end, here they have all the history of every single note that either goes out to the resident or notes that we put into the back end of the system. The what information is going to have, this is all the information that the resident put in on the front end of the page. And then this is going to show the location and the map, and then down here, the customer's information. So this is what we will see as staff on the back end, and up here is how we will take all of our actions. So I just wanted you to see how it looks like on the back with staff. And the residents also get to choose how they want to be notified. They can be notified via text, email, or call. And if they sign up for all three, when they have a request, when there's been any changes, or when it's complete, they will receive, they will be notified all ways that they asked to be notified on and checked. Yes.
I have to bring up Rob again. He asked for this so many times at codes that this would make Mr. Powell very happy to see this happen, because he was constantly asking, how can I follow up? How do I know that this was done? So I'm very glad for him that this has finally happened.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a wonderful shift, and it's a way to empower our residents to use their voice, to create more transparency, and to be able to have more communication and outlet with staff. And so I think overall it's going to be a really great enhancement and a benefit to how we work with our residents, and also the trust that we are building with our residents at a deeper level.
I would just be remiss if I didn't also point out that former council member Angela Kraft was a huge advocate for a tech solution for something like this. So this isn't the exact software that she had shown interest in, but this does everything that she had hoped for, and I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. I think it's going to be a really helpful tool.
Thank you. And I will say too, we are going to have a front-facing analytics tab for the residents, and then we're able to do any kind of reports. So we could do any reports depending on wards. Another really neat thing that I like in here is that depending on where it is in the map, it shows what ward it's in. And then we can also go in here, and then it shows who the council members are on each of the requests. So I find that very helpful.
Great.
Yeah. And another thing too is on the map here. I know, right? So neat. And then here, if we, right? And we can
You
even
can't just put it all to Mayor Larkey?
and we can even have the wards map on here, so we can see the wards on here and to choose that.
Go ahead.
We know Angela and Rob are already watching, but for the thousands of other people out there right now, it's My Belton, no space, and it'll pop right up if you're
Yes.
fortunate enough to have a droid.
Yeah, if you have a droid, download it. It works. It's neat. And so the app not only connects you to making a request, but it's also a connection point to different links on the website, to the city. You can connect to parks. You can pay your water bill on there, all sorts of things. It's very neat. It's very interactive. So we are very excited. And yeah, so are there any questions?
I'm so sorry. I have one
Go
more.
ahead. No, go
So
ahead.
if you mentioned the water bill, will it tie with the live read meters that have been deployed or deploying across the city?
He looks.
Seeing a head
he
shake,
looks-
that feels
he
like a
loo-
no.
He looks puzzled.
We don't have any live read meters yet.
The gas ones are live read.
Okay, I'll come back to that. I got a question.
Go ahead.
The notification that they get, whether they choose to get a call, text, and email, or just one.
Yeah.
Is that personalized, or is that like a generic, like, hey, we fixed your problem? And they just get a voicemail that says, hey, we fixed your problem. Or is that like someone like yourself actually calling them and say, hey, no, the problem's been fixed. This is what we did. Thanks for, reporting it.
So an answer is yes to both. So we have automatic replies that are already built into the system, but as a staff, I can actually message them. So if I need to say thank you, Thank you for reaching out. I will contact you at noon today. All right, so I can let them know anything. I can say, like, for example, like, if someone got a request for long grass, I can be like, I'll be able to go out and see that today at 3. So we're able to do, definitely.
So yeah, on something
Customizable.
simple where
Mhm.
it's, hey, we contacted them, they mowed the grass, it's a done thing, it's an automated response makes sense. For something more complex, you'll probably have a more personal conversation.
Exactly. So
makes sense.
here, yeah, if I add this, it's also going to show up here. And then on the back end of the system, oh, sorry, where'd I go? There we go. My requests, if I click in here and I go down, I can also see in the back end under my request all the information that I just added in there. I will say that the text and the email, you cannot respond directly to them. So, so if you get a text from the My Belton saying your request has been received, if you try to text back, it will say this text message does not go through. So if a resident does need to get more information, that's why they can come back in here and add in more information if they need to. And then once it does get closed out, so we have the different options to place something on hold. So maybe there's like bad weather, or for codes, maybe they're giving somebody 10 days to fix it. So it'll go on hold. It will let the resident know it's on hold, and then it will be reactivated again. And so the resident will be notified if it's on hold, if it's closed. And so if it's closed, we also have some comments already made that we can easily enter that in. And we can also edit that on any level.
Anybody else?
Okay. We start all the marketing on October 1st. Do you want to go over the marketing plan? No? Okay. Another day. So that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 3, base zoning versus plan unit development presentation.
All right, so based on the questions and concerns that have been expressed with the usage of PUDs for development projects recently, I thought it was a good time to provide more information about base zoning standards and PUDs with a particular focus on single-family development. This presentation will go through a quick overview of our R1 zoning standards as well as our PUD standards and expectations. I will then review some other high-level information of what is driving requests for PUDs and what other cities in the metro are approving either through the PUD process or developments that are permitted by right in those cities that can't be permitted in Belton due to us having more restrictive R1 zoning standards. So first, I think everybody on council is aware of what zoning is. But zoning is a designation that is designated and assigned for every parcel or lot in the city for the following reasons. Primarily, it restricts land uses, but it also restricts and regulates the size, width, height, coverage, setbacks, density, and open space of development. From the UDC, it provides for orderly development of infrastructure, including streets, utilities, and stormwater. And our current UDC went into effect in January 2011. We have the previous UDC on file, and the R1 zoning district standards did not change at all from the previous UDC, which I believe was adopted sometime in the 90s or early 2000s. So here are our current R1 zoning district standards. We have minimum standards with the lot size, width, and setbacks. Those are always in our staff reports that come before you. And then we have some minimum building design requirements for a new single-family house. And those are limited to just a handful of things. The biggest one is that there's a minimum 1,200 square feet of living area. So that is finished, livable floor area. Essentially could be used 365 days out of the year. So that doesn't include garages or unfinished basements. We have a max height of 35 feet, and then our only landscaping requirement is that the yard must be sodded, and they are required 1 front yard tree and 1 rear yard tree. So with that, what we have typically seen in the past is that our subdivisions are often designed in a manner that will produce the most lots while meeting those minimum standards. So we typically end up with long streets, long gridded streets. They may have cul-de-sacs, but generally they don't have a lot of curves or a lot of visual interest. Also, due to our lack of design requirements, our house designs, materials, and floor plans typically get repeated. So they'll find a specific development and a specific floor plan that works, and they will repeat that lot after lot. There's no incentive to add additional landscaping, so we typically get the sod and one tree in the front yard. And the base zoning is often focused heavily on the design and the development of the individual lot, not thinking about how that lot fits in with the lots around it or developing a neighborhood as a whole. And the last point there is that a lot of times neighborhood amenities are often limited if we receive any at all, and typically those are placed in conjunction with detention ponds to maximize lots. The purpose of the PUD is to encourage the unified design of a development by providing flexibility in the design of buildings, yards, courts, and circulation in exchange for common open space amenities and design excellence. So that's straight from the UDC. That's what a PUD is. It talks about the overall standards in relation to what can be modified, with the careful attention given to the overall density of the project not being developed beyond what is allowed by the code, and then providing adequate access and circulation, public services, and additional buffering where it's needed. The outcomes typically on that include lot sizes, width, setbacks, et cetera, that are unique to the development, which are established with the PUD zoning designation. And additionally, as part of that PUD proposal, there is an expectation that building design, landscaping, and amenities are enhanced, and that those are conditions tied to the rezoning and the development plan. So I put up a plan of traditions. That was the plan that was approved back in 2005, which was a PUD because they did provide a number of different housing types within there, but they also had a much larger, more active amenity plan compared to previous subdivisions that have been built in the city. Additionally, in our UDC currently, we have a planned district overlay. It's not something that has been utilized in the past, and so therefore that's why we've been bringing forward PUDs as opposed to that. A lot of cities have done away and they've just merged those into one planned district instead of having these two different distinctions. And that is something that we would propose looking at doing when we do a UDC update to make that more clear. So there's been a lot of questions why there are more PUD proposals. Here's a list of all the PUDs that have been approved in Belton in the past. So our first PUD was Cambridge Meadows off of Cambridge and South Scott, and that was specifically needed to be a PUD to allow townhouse development. So each one of the units there is its own lot. Those are not just a fourplex on one lot owned by one owner. Those can be owned individually for ownership. And then we had Cherry Hill Villas, which is Tanner Drive, and the Traditions in 2005. And then pretty much all of our other PUDs have come since 2018. So we've had a number. We've had apartments and Meadow Creek second phase, as well as a modification to Shady Lane and Notting Hill, which was specifically to make those private gated streets. So here's one of the challenges that we are facing and what we have heard in conversations with developers over the past year or so. The biggest challenge that Belton is having with attracting additional single-family residential, particularly higher-end housing, is that Belton's current median house value is much lower than some of the other communities in the metro where these home builders are building. So I did there's a bunch of comparable cities there that I included for reference, so you can just see the median home values in 2020 versus what our current Zillow estimate is in 2024. The good news is that Belton's median home value has increased at a faster rate than most of those communities, but numerically it is still lower than what those cities are. So developers right now, we are competing, of course, with a number of other cities in the metro, including these cities on the list. Developers are going to select cities where the process is fast, simple, and profitable to build their project. The biggest thing we hear from developers is that there's a lot more risk in Belton because our median home value right now is just under $250,000. It's a big risk to go in and build a neighborhood of $500,000 houses, whereas you can see the median in a number of other cities are much closer to that threshold. The other challenge that we have is these are our R1 zoning district standards, and those are compared to those same cities. So Belton does have, Belton and Raymore are very similar in their zoning standards. The only difference really is that Raymore has a higher rear setback, but they also have a higher, allow more building coverage at 30%. But as you go through the list, the lot sizes and setbacks typically get smaller. Lee Summit has smaller side yard setbacks, and their coverage requirement is not listed, which could be interpreted that they don't have a maximum building coverage as long as the setbacks are met. Blue Springs has smaller lot sizes and lot widths and side setbacks. And then once you get into all of the Johnson County cities, the side setbacks drop to 7 feet. Building coverage allowances go up, and in particular in Olathe, which is, tends to be outside of the Northland in Kansas City, the highest permitting city for new single-family homes, has a lot width down to 60 feet, which developers are looking at, and that is something that is often requested. So there's also a number of housing types that require PUD approval, even though they may fit nicely within the community. So some of those include townhouses. We do not have any simple way of townhousing within our zoning district standards. They have to come through a special process to do that, and PUD is the most appropriate way of doing that. We do not currently allow courtyard or pocket park neighborhoods. That's because any lot requires a minimum width along a public street. So that makes it difficult if somebody with their primary access is through an alley. The alley-loaded neo-traditional design, we have seen some of that. The View is a good example of that. That may be more appropriate in downtown, but there's also a lot of areas where, and some of the examples I will share, are not in a downtown area. They are part of a larger mixed-use development. And then the maintenance-provided villas type development, those are typically smaller lots, but still nice single-family dwellings that typically are ranches or reverse ranch-style homes. So PUD zoning in other cities, the purpose is to kind of go through some of the different projects that are currently under construction in other cities. And I selected these developments in these cities because these are communities that often either the council or residents have said that we should emulate or aspire to be like in terms of our development pattern. We've heard a lot of comments over the past year going through the comprehensive plan. Even just a few weeks ago, with the meeting with the Cherry Hill neighborhood, there were a lot of questions about, wanting to downsize and move to another neighborhood in Belton, but there's no other higher end housing for them to downsize to. A lot of people brought up Creekmore as a good example, and that is an example of a PUD that I'll go through here. So some cities have made it easier to develop by right, essentially removing the PUD process and just revising their standards to get the housing that they want. Olathe and Overland Park have done a good job at that. And then some cities have maintained their more restrictive zoning standards, just allowing those modifications to be made through the PUD. So Lee Summit and Raymore have done that. So I'll just go through, there's a dozen different projects here. I won't go into a lot of detail on them, but and I can share this presentation as well if you want to take a look at it in more detail. But with each one, I just gave an example of what their modifications are to the base zoning district, or in some cases where there's a project that there weren't modifications to the base zoning district in that particular city, but it would require modification under our current standards. And I also pulled out some pieces of information either through their staff reports just to show what those cities approved. There's some photos from the past few days from those locations, as well as an aerial to show kind of how the context of those neighborhoods. So here's our neighborhood in Overland Park. It's around it's south of 175th and Flum. So we're seeing a lot of the Olathe and Overland Park projects are all south of 107, or generally south of 159th Street, going down to about 183rd Street, which is pretty much where all of the growth, the new housing growth is at this point in that part of the metro. But we're seeing a lot of PUDs where they have a mix of these narrow lot areas with some different medium and then larger lots mixed within. This is an example of a new townhouse condo development, which are duplexes that have been split in two so they can be owner occupied. Again, that's something that can only be done here with a PUD. Setbacks are 12 feet between the buildings and minimum 10 feet from other property lines. This is in Olathe, and this is a single-family subdivision, more of a villa-style subdivision. And under Olathe zoning code, they actually made modifications to their R1 zoning to allow lot sizes as low as 5,000 square feet with 50-foot lot widths. And in order to get that or achieve that, you specifically have to provide at least 15% of the site common open space. And then they have higher quality design materials. So I believe in this case, all of the entire front elevation of the homes have to have stucco and stone to meet that requirement. But with that, they have the central amenity space and a trail that connects throughout the neighborhood. This is a similar type of development across the street from that project. This is actually allowed by right as well within Olathe. So they have a 7,200 square foot lot with 60-foot lot widths and 7-foot side yards. And again, this would require a PUD in Belton. This is an example of the courtyard style development where the homes are facing on kind of a pocket park in the interior of the neighborhood, and their access is through alleys that connect to the public street. And then jumping over to the Missouri side, Creekmore is the largest PUD in Raymore. Creekmore started in the early 2000s, and the initial phases of Creekmore were relatively more modest housing. They had to build that, kind of set that precedent, and over time increased the home sizes and the values within that neighborhood. So here at the Village at Southern Hills, which is kind of the southwesternmost subdivision, they had reductions in lot sizes, setbacks, coverage, widths to meet that requirement. And then on the north end of the golf course, just south of 155th Street, there's a couple of different, the west and north side of the golf course. There's a few areas in there, some of the earlier villa development that also had those same reductions. Then going on the east side of Creekmore, this is a relatively recent addition. This is Eastbrook at Creekmore, and as you can see, this PUD, what reductions they were given, quite a bit lower than anything that we've seen, aside from, of course, the view. But this is outside of a downtown area. These homes are relatively $350,000 to $400,000, and then these cul-de-sacs here are $800,000 to $1 million homes. So the concern about having a wide discrepancy in home values within close proximity has not really proven to be an issue in a lot of these communities. Yeah.
I hate to interrupt, but that's a great point, and that's where my question is going to go anyways, which is, so why does the median home value matter that much? You said that's creates more risk and people don't want to come here, but if Creekmore is proving the exact opposite doesn't matter, why I don't get it.
So the difference is that you're looking at a neighborhood in Raymore that's already been built. So they started with 300,000 to 400,000 homes, and because those sold, the builders and developers decided, well, we can move up to 500 to 700, and those sold really well. So then they move up to 800 to 1 million, and they're selling just fine. But there's also a market still within those neighborhoods for that $300,000 to $500,000 range.
And the neighbors are not having fits about this, right? This is a working situation. Is that what you're asking too?
I mean, I wasn't asking that. I'm more interested in the developer side and how we get, because I'm also hearing, and what I'm also hearing is that we can have the tiniest homes built, but them be $1 million houses, you know, and I'm being facetious here or not facetious, I'm over exaggerating is what I'm doing, but you're saying the smaller lots don't matter, right? That's what you're saying, hey, we can have these close setbacks, we can have these smaller lots, and they're still gonna have higher priced homes on them because there's more bedrooms or there's more whatever, and that's not, so the setbacks aren't the problem either, which then I would go to, okay, but then why not Belton? Why, you know, where's the holdup?
Well, what we're trying to do, and kind of the intent of this presentation, is to show the different development that is going on in our neighboring communities. We know that Belton needs more housing, and other cities that even have a leg up on us within the development community because they know that they can go in there and build higher priced homes and they will sell. The concern with a lot of developers is there's a little bit of extra risk involved in Belton because there haven't been enough homes built at a higher price point. And so there's a fear, well, if we go in there and build that, is it going to sell? So it's about taking that risk on making sure. And so we heard that from Elevate. So Elevate told us that when they started building in Midtown Kansas City, they started building homes at the 300, 350 price point. And because those sold well, they eventually continued to build more product that eventually now they're selling homes for $500,000 because they invested, that it was that initial investment that they made. It's the same with Creekmore. They started out with lower priced homes, but over time, because those sold, and made the builders confident that they could up that even further. There's just a few more examples here. Here's an example from Raymore with some new kind of a mix of single family and two family, and a few more villa products out at the Good Ranch. Several neighborhoods in the Good Ranch were planned developments. Because those were built in the 90s, early 2000s, they don't really have a lot of information on what those reductions or changes were. Shadowwood and Raymore at Madison and Lucy Webb, also a mix of different housing, and they added some alley-loaded housing in there as well. And then a few Lee Summit developments, Arbor Walk, they of course have their more mixed-use area with a mix of townhomes and apartments, but they have a new phase up here that is single-family that also has those reduced homes, 6,500 square feet, 50-foot wide lots, and 5-foot setbacks, still maintaining a traditional architectural style. And then I think just a couple more. There's New Longview, I think everyone's probably familiar with, which is a much more master planned community. And then Woodside Ridge is a recent villa product in Lee Summit that also has 5-foot side yards, 5,000 square foot lots and 5,000 square foot lots and 50-foot wide lots. So again, these are just comparisons of what's going on in other cities. We also, as a metro, are attracting other developers and builders from outside of the region, and particularly from the south and the west. And most cities in those areas of the country utilize PUDs or PDs as part of their development. So that's what developers are accustomed to. There's a little bit of information in there about some of the history of PUDs and kind of the different types of housing that have been built over the past 20 years. I will also mention that we of course have the upcoming UDC update, so there's opportunity to revisit our current zoning standards to determine where these changes could be made to attract higher quality neighborhood development in the community. And really, we're kind of in a period where once Traditions and Autumn Ridge are completed, we have the View potentially in the pipeline, but right now we have no other large single-family developments in the pipeline. So I think it's a good time to have that conversation of just with the PUDs and how we proceed with development in the community, particularly as it relates to single-family homes.
Any questions? Go ahead.
So based on what you're presenting here, and I know you might not have all the answers, okay, but I'm going to ask. Then I would venture to guess around Traditions might be a good place for us to have some of those more expensive houses, given that, you know, what you're talking about, like there's a step up, if you will, or whatever the right term is. Would that be fair to say?
I think in that area, I also think with the Dryden Natural Reserve, I think the Cleveland Avenue corridor, Cambridge, that area is also, and also the Holmes Road corridor is also very attractive, building off of Loch Lloyd and Fairway Ridge Estates. So I think there's several areas in the community. We still have vacant ground on Kentucky Road. So there's still plenty of pockets of areas that within the city where this type of development would work.
I guess my point is, it just sounds like a catch-22. Like, oh, you don't have any $1 million houses, so we're not going to build $1 million houses. Okay, there's only one way to start that trend, right? So, yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you. Item 4, Christmas lights.
Mayor and council members, Mike is going to pass out a bid tabulation sheet. We did do an RFP for Christmas lights. I also will take this time to mention that there has been a proposed MOU sent to us via Downtown Belton Main Street and BCPI, where they are asking us to, they're willing to buy the lights. Downtown Belton Main Street would buy the lights, and Belton would be responsible for storing the lights and putting the lights up. And but BCPI would own the lights. So that's essentially the MOU that's been sent to us. That's not attached to this bid document at all. I think it's commendable that Downtown Belton Main Street is considering purchasing or funding or helping fund this. And so what I would recommend is that the city go forward with one of these proposals and go back and say, okay, here's a plan that we can work. Here's how much it costs. We don't have to store it. Luckily, they can store it. We don't have to put them up. The bids or the cost of putting them up is also included in these bids. And I'll let Mike talk a little bit about what the bids include, because he did the RFP, so that way we know exactly what we would be getting if we decide to move forward with something like this.
So kind of working from the left to the right, so we have the vendor name and kind of where they're located. In the green column, that base bid. In the RFP, I'm sorry, we asked just for single string of lights across the rooftops from the annex all the way to all the buildings on Chestnut. Our thinking in that, or my thinking in that, was those are all the buildings that are in line. They are right behind the sidewalk, kind of the core of the downtown area. And so the prices that you're seeing from in that base bid in that green box, That is to outright purchase the lights. And so each of these vendors, we would own the lights. They would store the lights. They would also install and maintain the lights while they're up, and then they would remove them and store them the rest of the year. And so this includes all lights, materials, clips, wiring, the install, the materials that they would need for the install. As part of the bid, we also asked for a couple of alternates. The ones that we built into the bid was alternate one. That was to light the mayor's Christmas tree at the bank just west of Chestnut. The second one that we asked for, and this was because the annex does have several trees, bushes and trees out front as well as on the side in the green space, we asked what it would cost just to purchase lights and light those as well, just to kind of add some additional decoration. During the pre-bid meetings, we were asked, well, what if we wanted to do west of Chestnut, which would include the fire station, the bank, as well as buildings, I think it was an insurance office on the next building. And so we included that as another alternate bid and got the pricing on that one. The final one, and this was one we did not ask for, we had one of the bidders included in their bid, was if they were to add lights and garland to all of the light poles along Main Street between essentially the annex all the way down Main Street from the annex to Chestnut. And so that price is reflected there. The red box is the base bid plus all of the alternates that each of the vendors would have included. We created this RFQ really to be as close an apples to apples comparison for each of these vendors as possible. And so, like I said, the base bid includes a 1-year contract where we would purchase the lights, we would have them installed, maintained, removed, and then stored for the next year. And council would have the authority then to either renew the contract if it felt they did a good job or not. And so then on top of that, we have the other alternates. Happy to answer any questions about the bid process itself. We held 2 pre-bid meetings. All but one of the vendors in the spreadsheet attended those pre-bid meetings. And I feel like of the 2 of the lower end, I've worked with Holiday FX and previous cities, and so I know their work experience. And so really I'm kind of happy to answer any questions I can about what we have here on the sheet.
Go ahead.
Mike, do you know what, if assuming that we go with one of these companies and then this is our cost to buy the lights and they're storing them. Now, next year we wouldn't have to spend as much to buy lights. Do we know what the cost would be for like a year 2 or year 3 when we already have the lights purchased?
That is a great question. I don't right off the top of my head, but the cost of the materials would be removed from the contract, and so in year 2 and 3, it would just be a labor cost, and I can create a second spreadsheet on that on what year 2 and 3, but I wanted to get just this initial 1-year contract.
Go ahead.
Maybe I'm missing something here. What is the difference between 17,587 and 59,550? I mean, what's the difference in what we get? I mean, is it gold string? Is it,
Yeah, I mean, is it LED lights versus non-LED, or like what is that difference?
Part of the RFP, we did ask and clarified in the pre-bid meetings that these were going to be all LED lights. The majority of the swing in these pricing, it really comes in on the labor side, and so there are in some of these areas they value their labor very, very highly, and others they because they have the experience of doing this year after year. The two of our vendors on here between Rigdon and Holiday FX, I know they have some fairly large references within there. One of them being Worlds of Fun, the other one being cities on the Johnson County side where they have miles and miles of lighting that they do for downtown areas, and so they're experienced in this, and then they operate on volume. And so really I feel like they might be a little more honed in, have the equipment ready to go. But kind of as to why they swing that wildly in the labor side, I wouldn't be able to answer that really.
what did you say the alt, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What did you say that last alt 17,000 was? That was for the?
That was, yeah, the bidder.
Just automatically put that in?
Yeah, just put it in as part of the bid, that it would include garland and lights on the light poles. I did not include that as part of the base bid, only because was trying to get, again, just as close to a true apples-to-apples comparison of just lights on the building, just for the parts or the materials and labor on that. Just because as we start getting into more ornamental decorations, it becomes more of a wild card. It's really hard to say, this type of ornamentation is valued the same as a different type. So I figured if we could just get, close to 3,000 feet of lights, LED, placed on the building, that would be probably about as close as we could get to a true price on each of these on the base bid.
Question, on some of these alternate bids, they have NA. Is that included in their base bid?
No, the base bid, again, is just the lights on the buildings. They did not put in for those alternates as part of their bid. And so really we were just judging their lowest and best based on that base bid. The alternates were kind of the nice to haves.
Go ahead.
So, following on that question, does that mean that they wouldn't do it at all? They don't offer that service, or that, it's that they wouldn't offer it at all?
No, they would offer it. It wasn't part of the base bid. Because again, so the challenge with west of Chestnut is those buildings are further out. They aren't located right on Main Street, and so any boom lift that they would need to get would require them to go drive on private property. The fire station itself is not as straightforward in terms of clipping lights onto the building off of, from what I understood, kind of the technicality of it is there's a magnet light that needs to be used on the flashing on that building, and so it's a little bit more of a challenge than some of our buildings that are right up against behind the sidewalk in line. They could do a single string all the way down the block, essentially. And so it created a little extra challenge than what the inline lighting would be, and so that's why we pulled it out as an alternate. Not that they wouldn't do it, and if there was someone on here that didn't put in under one of the NAs that we wanted to come back and ask them as part of the negotiation, we would like to add the additional string materials, we certainly could.
Go ahead.
Okay, so just to verify, we would not own the lights. We would be paying these companies to buy them, store them. We do own them.
Yeah, these would be our lights per the contract. Our contract with them, they would maintain and store them for us as part of that. And so we wouldn't have to find storage space for them or ensure that they're in a climate controlled or whatever throughout the year. And then when it comes back around to October, November, they would come back in and install them out of their storage area.
Perfect, thank you. And the previous year vendor that DBMSI paid, they didn't respond to the RFQ?
They did not.
Okay. The cost of electricity for these?
Because they're LEDs, it would be fairly minimal. But if there's something that we want to get, if we want to get into that fine a detail about offsetting costs for LED lighting, we could have that conversation fairly easily.
I think at some point we would have to, because I know the vendor, some of the businesses on Main Street end up footing the bill for the electricity, right? Because they use their power. So in the spirit of being collaborative and good neighbors, you know what I mean? Like, let's just get together a solid plan that's easy to repeat, and then we can start building traditions around this. You know what I mean? Repeatable is good.
I think that's the hope, and what I'm presenting here today is you guys now have an idea of what it would cost for year one. Years 2 and 3 would be not as much as this, because we wouldn't have to purchase the lights for years 2 and 3. We'd already own the lights.
Yeah.
But I guess the questions that we're wanting to ask are: do we want to move forward with something like this? Do we want to go back to Main Street and BCPI and say, okay, here, your MOU is that you guys would buy the lights, we would have to store them and try to find a way to put them up, and they would not be owned by the city. We wouldn't have the expense. We also wouldn't have the ownership, but then we'd also have the installation requirements. So those are the things that I'm asking you guys for direction on.
I say we move forward as a city and do it ourselves and include the annex and the west of Chestnut. Now, what other, you work on the bid, if the other two want to bid that. If not, obviously Rigdon looks like the best bid with that, so. Go ahead.
if the businesses provided the electricity, if they just decide they didn't want to provide the electricity, how would we do the lighting?
Good question. In the past, it's been one of those things that, they provide the electricity, so that's what they got the lighting and the benefit of that. So at this point, we don't have necessarily a backup plan for if they don't want to. I suppose that's a conversation that still needs to take place.
Well, I mean, do we have the ability to have electricity without them?
Well,
That guy knows.
Yeah.
well,
I mean,
so, and to add to that question, what if just one business in this chain, this daisy chain of lights says, no, I don't want to participate? Does that mean the rest of the businesses on the other end can't, and we can only get, you know what I mean? Or is there a way to have them still separate, or how's that work?
Well, I think it's probably going to be kind of an all or none deal, I would assume. I mean, we just got to get everybody on board. I mean, everybody's participated before, in the past, so
Yeah,
I don't know why we would want to change that.
one of you two had.
Also, one other piece of information is Mike, before we did this, we did a survey of the downtown, and none of them said they didn't want it. So at this point, it's not like we have this big concern that someone's going to say, I don't want it.
I know this is a silly question. I know a lot of the complaints from the business owners were the people on top of their roofs. They liked when the city did, what's that machine, cherry picked it, because they weren't on their roofs. And I do know of one business that is pretty much billed for all the electricity for that block. So it's not fair for one person to pay for the whole block either. So, I mean,
And those are reasonable, yeah, I mean, that's all reasonable concerns.
running across the tops, that was the big issue.
Well, the good thing is we're not working with this, I mean, I don't also know if it's a good thing. We're not working with the same contractor that did in the past because they didn't put in a bid. So I'm not sure what each of these, what methodology they'd be using to put these up yet.
So I can confirm that between Rigdon, Holiday FX, and Luminous, all three of them indicated as part of their bid that they would be using the kind of the drivable boom, that they'd be able to just move down through the street. And so they wouldn't actually even be on anyone's building.
That's good.
Yeah, that's definitely good.
Anybody else?
So you were proposing what?
I propose that we do the base bid, alternate 1, alternate 2, and alternate 3, and that we do it and move forward.
But not the poles.
I mean, I guess we can have you go back to the other ones and see if they want to do the polls.
So,
And, because if you're going to go back to get the alternate 2 and 3 on the other two, yeah.
well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's only 2 of them that are even offering alternates 2 and 3 at this time. So I feel like that might affect the decision a little bit if, let's say, one of them come back and say, oh yeah, we'll throw that in as part of the cost for free, or the vice versa. They say, that's going to be a lot more money.
I think at this point we have a bidder who has submitted a bid with with those 3 alternates to it, and they're a low cost bid at this point. I mean, if you were to add others to the Holiday FX, I don't know what that would be, but they didn't submit that, right? So it would seem that we would most likely move forward with Rigdon. If we wanted the poles, I'm guessing that, I mean, there's a reason why if you look at the 3rd bid, the poles is more than what the rest of the bid is. And so the reason that is that it'd be a high labor task to go through and do all the polls is my guess, and that's why the cost is so high.
Well, and to that point, I took out that, and it significantly brings down their total, right? It comes down to less than 30,000, closer in line with these 21 and 17 on the other 2 that are lower.
Maybe we could move forward without the polls this year and
Yeah,
rethink it next year.
I don't know if we do. Personally, my proposal would be not to do the polls, but just based on that cost. But I guess I still think about it from like, I hear what you're saying. We have a bid. We got someone saying they're willing to do all 3, so let's just move forward with that one. But I guess I feel like it's worth at least the phone call to say, hey, Holiday FX, could you give us your costing on this? And if they say no, then fine, it's easy. But if they don't, I mean, who knows? Maybe we can find that's a more cost effective, or I don't know. I just feel like it's worth that phone call.
I mean, that's up to you, because you would have to do
Yeah,
it.
it'd be easy phone call to make.
Any other feedback on that?
I'm glad we have something in place. This has been, I think, a very important piece of my tradition here in the city, and I think a lot of other people feel the same, and I'm glad to see we're coming up with a plan.
Okay. Fair enough.
Anybody else? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.1 pertaining to leasing, purchasing, or sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.2, and the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries.